this is Steve at heavenlysign2017.com. Hope everyone is having a blessed day. I published this video on April 7th of this year. The photo that you're looking at, this was a 2014 event. 2014 caught sight of this gigantic dark blemish marring the surface of the sun. It's a sunspot. It's covering a surface area that could easily swallow 10 Earths whole. But this was not the largest sunspot ever seen. The largest sunspot on modern record occurred in 1947. It was almost 3 times as large as this one. Here you're looking at a screenshot. This is from the Guinness World Records book of the year 2013. And this comparison of these 3 sunspots will help give you the scale of this historic 1947 sunspot. So on April 8th, which is tomorrow, go back exactly to 1947, and the largest sunspot ever recorded was observed. It was a estimated 7 billion square miles. 7 billion. So it currently holds the record. 100 Earths could fit into this area. And so tomorrow, April 8th, 2017, will also be the 99th day of the year. 7 billion square miles in area. Quite a big sunspot. I went on later to make a number of videos regarding the 2 solar eclipses that occur 7 years apart. The one this month, coming up on the 21st of August, and the other in 2024. Take note of the fact that on the day that this solar eclipse occurs on April 8, 2024, it will mark exactly 77 years to the day of that historic sunspot in 1947 that you just watched. 77 years to the day. From the sunspot in 1947 to the solar eclipse coming up this month is 70 years. That 70 years calculates to 25,703 days, and these 5 digits equal 17. So I have to conclude that this historic sunspot event back in 1947 is directly related, prophetically speaking, to the 2024 solar eclipse, which will occur on the same date, April 8th, as well as the one that's coming up. Now, I've been asked if I believe this coming October's meteor shower is the 1/3 of the stars being cast to Earth by the dragon in Revelation 12. What does pique my interest is the timing, because it's said to peak between October 20 and October 22. And if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that October 20 is the beginning of the tribulation on our Alpha to Omega timeline. They say that the meteors will be some of the fastest and brightest among meteor showers because the Earth is hitting a stream of particles almost head on. The particles are coming from Halley's Comet, which swings by Earth every 75 to 76 years. I find that number interesting. The constellation Orion, the hunter, factors into this equation. You've probably, some of you, I'm sure you've remembered some of the work that we've done in the past on that. I mean, we are talking about Orion, the giant. You know, it's positioned so that it can be seen by everybody. It's a large and a bright constellation of 80 stars. Yeah, that's right, 80 stars, and 17 large ones, which according to ancient Hebrew writings has irrefutable connections with Nimrod, storms and tempests, contention with God or waging war against God, the wickedness of Israel as well as the rebellion of mankind. Orion, the great hunter, symbolizing the coming prince, a picture of Jesus with a club in his raised right hand and the skin of a slain lion in his left hand. His left foot is crushing Lepus, his enemy. And in the oldest, most ancient illustrations of Orion, the hilt and the handle of the sword are drawn as the head and the body of a lamb, and from his raised foot flows a river of fire. Most Christian commentators identify him as Christ during his millennial reign. I looked at the Jewish gematria value of Orion, and it's 120. Well, we know 12 is symbolic of God's divine power and authority, so we've got God's divine power and authority multiplied by 10. As I pointed out in a past video, Orion is mentioned twice in the book of Job and once in the prophecy of Amos. Orion means coming forth as light. It's the brightest star in the constellation is Betelgeuse, meaning the coming of the branch. Another star in his foot is Rigel, meaning the foot that crushes. And in the shoulder of the constellation is a star called Bellatrix, which means quickly coming. And in his leg is a star called Saiph, meaning bruised. And in all this, we're reminded of Christ crushing the head of the seed of the serpent. So, Orion is obviously a picture of Christ coming in power and great glory. As I said, the peak of this shower has a connection to the October 20, 2017 date on our timeline, the beginning of Daniel's 70th week. So I'll let you, my viewers, decide on this. I never see anything as insignificant. So now on to the subject of this video, something I think you'll find quite encouraging, quite intriguing, unless you're still hammering on a cardboard forge. This is about the Judean Date-Palm. So we begin here with Noah's grandpappy, Methuselah, son of Enoch. Methuselah was the world's oldest man. He dies at age 969, 7 days before the flood, and gets a 48-year-old tree named after him. They said that the date the tree was seeded was something like 2833. It was a Great Basin bristlecone pine tree growing high in the White Mountains in eastern California, named the Methuselah tree, but it was thought to be the world's oldest tree until it was thought that an older tree was found, which they named after a god of pagan Greek mythology, Prometheus. Great. Great. Anything to divert people's attention from a symbol that by its very nature represents life and growth and all kinds of other things. Well, I'm going to show you what I believe was God's response to this, because Methuselah's dad comes into play here. Methuselah's dad was Enoch, who didn't die but was taken by God. He was the seventh patriarch. Methuselah was the eighth. And note that Prometheus was not. And he dies in the year of the flood, in which 8 souls were saved, ending the 10 generational sequence from Adam to Noah. Anyway, this Californiae tree stuff is all Gentile in nature. So let's go to Israel and talk about the date palm. The date palm was anciently regarded as a symbol of the region and its fertility. Cultivation of dates in the region almost disappeared after the 14th century AD from a combination of climate change and infrastructure decay, but it's been revived in modern times. Of course, the Romans had something to say about that as well. Now in Joel 1:12 we read, "The vine is dried up, and the fig tree languishes, the pomegranate tree, the palm tree also, and the apple tree, even all the trees of the field are withered, because joy is withered away from the sons of men." When the Roman Empire invaded ancient Judea, folks, thick forests of date palm up to 80 feet high and 7 miles wide covered the Jordan River Valley from the Sea of Galilee in the north to the shores of the Dead Sea in the south. The trees so defined the local economy that the Roman Emperor Vespasian, he celebrated the conquest by minting a special bronze coin, some coinage that showed the Jewish state as a weeping woman beneath a date palm. But then we come to 2005, 57 years after the rebirth of Israel, and what happens? Well, a preserved 2,000-year-old seed sprouted. That's right, the Judean Date-Palm. It's the oldest verified human-assisted germination of a seed. The palm, named Methuselah, which I find interesting, not to be confused with the before-mentioned bristlecone pine tree in California. Nevertheless, a name that is interesting in relation to the before-mentioned Methuselah tree, whose status as the world's oldest was replaced by one named after a god of Greek mythology. By the time the Roman Empire sought to usurp control of the kingdom in 70 AD, broad forests of these trees flourished as a staple crop to the Judean economy, a fact that made them a prime resource for the invading army to destroy. Sadly, around the year 500 AD, the once plentiful palm had been completely wiped out, driven to extinction for the sake of conquest. In the centuries that followed, first-hand knowledge of the tree slipped from memory to legend, up until a few years ago, that is. During excavations at the site of Herod the Great's palace in Israel in the early 1960s, and you know how I feel about Herod the Great, but anyway, archaeologists unearthed a small stockpile of seeds stowed in a clay jar dating back 2,000 years. For the next 4 decades, that's 40 years, the ancient seeds were kept in a drawer at Tel Aviv's, some university there. But then in 2005, a botanical researcher named Elaine Saloe decided to plant one and just see what would happen, see if it'd sprout.
And about a week later, she said, there's a green little tip coming out through the crack. And we were kind of, what? So, I said, well, just, keep doing whatever you're doing.
Here he is. Here's Methuselah.
So it's, you talk about genetically modified food. This is kind of like historically modified food. This is a new date, but it comes from ancient times, maybe. So I kind of like that, historically modified. It's kind of interesting. So agriculturally, it may be very interesting as a food. Medicinally, it may be very interesting as a medicine. Historically, of course, it's fascinating to wake something up that's been asleep that long. And the whole area that this opens up, that if you can waken up a seed for 2,000 years and get it to grow, there are a lot of possibilities in that area that we could also explore.
Fruit of the date palm was considered a staple food in the Judean desert, as it was a source of food in its tree of shelter and shade for thousands of years, and became a recognized symbol of the kingdom of Judah. It's praised in the Hebrew Bible, such as in Psalms 92, where it says, "The righteous himself will blossom forth as a palm tree does." And did you know that Hebrew women were advised to eat dates to ease their labor pains? That's right. The Hebrew word for the date palm is tamar. It became the Jews' symbol of grace and elegance and was often bestowed by them to women. For example, David's beautiful daughter was named Tamar. So during the year of 64, I'm not talking about 64, the year 64, I'm talking 1964. During the year of 64, excavations at Herod the so-called Great's palace on Masada, Israel, revealed a cache of date palm seeds, a clay jar of palm seeds, preserved in an ancient jar. And the Jewish gematria value of Tamar is 640. The seeds had experienced a very dry and sheltered, there's a little doubt here as to who sheltered them, environment for centuries. Radiocarbon dating at the University of Zurich, Switzerland, confirmed the seeds. Take note of the fact that the Swiss remarkably deterred Hitler, who wanted to exterminate all Jews from invading it in World War II. Even though some railroads ran through there to the extermination camps, the Swiss really repelled an invasion by Hitler. Dated the seeds from between 155 BC to 64 AD. Now, that's within the period of time that Jesus was actually alive in Palestine. The seeds were held in storage for 40 years. Now, that's a biblical period of trial and testing. Until in 2005, the seeds were pre-treated in a fertilizer and hormone-rich solution. 3 of the seeds, that's interesting, 3, were subsequently planted in southern Israel. And 8 weeks later, that's interesting, 1 of the seeds, that's also interesting, had sprouted, and by June 2008, a tree with nearly a dozen fronds, which was over 4.5 foot tall, sprung up. By the summer of 2010, the sapling stood about 6.5 foot tall, taller than the average man. And just what was the plant nicknamed? What was the Methuselah, after the longest lived person listed in the Bible. So Methuselah got its fame back. Now, it's the oldest known tree seed, the oldest known tree seed successfully germinated, and the only living representative of the Judean Date-Palm, a tree extinct for over 800 years, which is there's another number also interesting, which was once a major food and export crop in ancient Judah. Now here's the really, really interesting part. Methuselah flowered in March of 2011 and is male. Yeah, male. And Methuselah has produced pollen that's been used successfully to pollinate female date palms. Now, Methuselah could only produce pollen, not fruit. So they found someone that was growing a female on their farm. They took some of the pollen and they put it on the female, and a few weeks later it produced some fruit, some dates. Since this time, additional Judean date palm seeds have been grown. Several are female, so it's hoped that it will soon be possible to pollinate a female Judean date palm with the pollen of a male of the same variety. I want you to wrap your spiritual brain around that if you can, considering what is about to occur regarding the church, the gleanings, the tribulation saints, the salvation of God's people, Israel, and all that. So date palms, being either male or female, can't produce fruit without the other. Think Adam and Eve in the garden here. The temple was decorated with them, welcoming the people that entered into the temple, representing a way back to paradise and a right relationship with God. They're mentioned 32 times in the Bible. They decorated Solomon's temple and were on the doorways in Ezekiel's description of the third temple. The city of Jericho is often referred to as the city of palms, and the woman in the Song of Songs is twice likened to a palm tree. The leaves were used in Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, and are still used today. It represents strength, and the sweet fruit of the palm represents those who love God's law. The leaves were waved in victory and praise as Yeshua entered Jerusalem, and is also in the book of Revelation. If palm trees were used to welcome the Lord's first coming to Jerusalem at the Feast of Tabernacles, well, would they not when he returns to tabernacle among us? So Methuselah has miraculously become a father. The researchers were hoping for a female which would bear fruit. However, Methuselah is male, and now at, I believe, 12 years old, That's the perfect number symbolizing God's power and authority. He's become a father. He's successfully pollinated a female tree which has produced dates. Methuselah has borne fruit in his old age. Psalm 92:12 and 13 says, "The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those who are planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bear fruit in their old age." These palms can flourish even in harsh conditions, and that is what can also be said of those who taste the honey or the sweetness of God's Word. I find Deuteronomy 8 worth noting as well. "All the commandments which I command thee this day shall you observe to do, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which the Lord sware unto your fathers. And thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years." Remember the 40 years the seeds lay in storage. "In the wilderness, to humble thee and to prove thee, to know what was in thine heart, whether thou wouldest keep his commandments or no." Now Deuteronomy 8:8, those are interesting numbers there, lists date honey as the 7th species. Count it. Look in your King James Bible and count it. Seventh species. So the honey listed in Deuteronomy 8:8 is the date syrup that comes from palm trees, making palm trees one of the 7 species of promise. So it turns out that what the Romans destroyed has been resurrected. Did I say that? Yeah, I said that. But hey, let's don't be so hard on the Romans, because they did give us this. IXXXI is the Roman numerical equivalent of 921. That's right. IX equals 9, XXI equals 21. The combined Jewish, English, and simple gematria values of IXXXI has a total value of 1548. And Strong's number 1548, ek gamisko, is I give in marriage. Well, as a final note, I've received many a concern from viewers about their hope to persevere. I hope I make it. I hope I'm good enough. I pray. I'm praying so hard that God considers me worthy, and so on and so forth. To make it to the end, to hold up to the criticism of a modern day Pharisee religious system, or my rotten flesh, or whatever. Folks, you will persevere. We all will, because it's really not about our perseverance in Christ at all, but it's about preservation. And that work of preservation belongs to Him. Him, not us. He would just have us trust Him for that most important promise. Look, I hope you guys have found encouragement in all of this. This is Steve. I love you guys. I truly do. Thank you for watching.